How many times am I gonna say I love a book in this video? Yeah. So many times, because obviously I love all these books. They're my favorites of 2020. Hello everyone! My name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my favorite books of 2020. I'm here today surrounded by many books because I have not only my top 10 to talk about, but also a few almost favorites that I just had to mention because otherwise I don't really talk about them a whole lot on my channel. And then I have, of course, two that you guys have been following me on my Vlogmases. I've been trying to read to see if they would get on my favorites list, and I just haven't been able to finish them. It's on me. It's my bad. I should have read them earlier in the year. But it's okay. All my favorites that I have around me, they affected me so much and I love them all. So most of these are without order. I do have top 3 and so I will talk about those at the end, of course, but let's just dive right in. So I believe the earliest book that I read this year that was one of my favorites was The Light Between Worlds by Laura E. Weymouth. When I read this book, I listened to it on audiobook, and it is basically a Narnia retelling where it's like what happens after the kids come home, and it's this one girl who's basically stuck in that world in her head, and she's so depressed and she's been trying to get back there. And her sister, who wanted to come home in the first place. So it's like the after effect of being a kid who goes to Narnia, and it is so heartbreaking and is so beautifully written, and I loved it. I don't own a physical copy of it yet because I read it with my ears, and so I loved this one so much, and it was such a whim to pick it up because it was on my Libby app, and I was like, okay, cool, this sounds interesting, I'm gonna give this a try, and it ended up being on my favorites list right away. I think I read it in January or February, one of the first 2 months of this year, and I absolutely loved it. And the next one is Green Glass House, which is I think my favorite middle grade of this year. It had a hard fight though, because there's another one that I'm going to talk about in like my almost favorite section of this video that I absolutely loved as well, but it hit me different. It's about a little boy named Milo who him and his family basically run this inn called Green Glass House. It's set up in the mountains, and it's basically an inn where a bunch of smugglers come to stay. Like it's an inn where smugglers like to frequent it because it's secretive and tucked away. So it's set over Christmas, and Milo is wanting a very chill holiday. No work to be done, that kind of a thing. But on the very first night of his holiday, 5 people show up. Each of these people are weird. They all have something about them, and Milo wants to figure this out. So he makes friends with one of the girls who's staying there, and they like basically play this game that's basically live action D&D, which is so fun. And they figure out the mysteries, and it is so good, and Milo himself is adopted, and I think that's what really hit me hard because I myself am adopted, and I get all of his grief and his confliction, and like I understand his thoughts because I've been there as a kid, and so it hit me in some type of way, and it was so fantastic, and I just loved it so much, and I cannot wait to get my hands on a copy. Number 3 that I'm going to talk about today is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. This book was featured also in my surprising versus disappointing list because this book surprised me so much. But like, I can't get this out of my head. I think about it to this day, and I read it this summer, and I love it so much, and it was like one of those books that I just couldn't help but tab, and it's one of those books that I cannot wait to reread. I cannot wait to reread it next like fall in like the gloomy winter times because it is exactly that vibe. It is Jane Eyre meets The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It is so gothic and so mysterious and just so well done. It is a love story to stories and creepy houses. Like, it's so good, and I loved it so much. I think this is probably my favorite fall read ever, and I'm going to continuously recommend you pick this up for fall. Even in the winter too as well, because they're like in this, I believe it gets close to Christmas. So if you're looking for something to read this winter as well, something gothic-y, something really deep and luxurious, definitely pick this up. I also really highly recommend the audiobook. I know you can get it off of Scribd. It's fantastic. It is so good. It follows our main character Margaret, who goes and is invited by this really prolific, very mysterious author, Vida Winter, because Vida Winter is notorious for telling stories about her life and changing the story every time she tells it. Nobody knows who she is or what her life really was like because she always makes up these stories. But now Vida Winter is very sickly and she has contacted Margaret to tell her real story, and it's so good. It's so good. And so Margaret goes to her really ancient manor, and Margaret also visits the house that Vida Winter grew up in, Angelfield House, because this whole story like revolves around the Angelfield House, and it's so good, you guys. It's so good. Read it, please. Like, if you read anything that I recommend, please read this one. It is just fantastic. The next one that I'm going to talk about, number 4 on this list, I guess they're not really in any order, but that is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This has become my favorite romance ever. It has become top tier, nothing can beat it romance, and I'm so happy that I read this year. I read this year with my lovely friends Avery and Ashley. We are the lovely ladies here on BookTube. We took a break this December, but we should be back in the new year at some point. Talia Hibbert just does something with her writing that is so good. It is humorous, it's light, but it also like deals with really deep subjects as well. This book, I have no words. So it is about Chloe Brown, who is chronically ill, and at the beginning of the story she decides that she really needs to get a life. Like, she kind of has almost a near-death experience, and she's just like, yeah, I need to live a little bit because I have been stuck in my family house since I was diagnosed with this illness, and I haven't really done anything. I'm very, very secluded and whatever. So she gets herself her own apartment, and she makes a list of things that she wants to do to get a life. And she meets her superintendent, Redford, who is, I think, one of my favorite love interests of all time. And the two of them have like a hate to love kind of a thing going on, but she basically enlists him to help her with her list, and it is the cutest book. I love it so much. Alright, so the next one on my list is another recent read, actually. I read this, I believe, in November. I intended to read it in August because to me it's such an Augusty type read, but I'm so glad that I read it in November, and that is Lovely War by Julie Berry. This, I think, is my favorite historical fiction ever that I've read as well. It is just so fabulously done. It is basically the story of 4 mortal people, their love stories, told by Aphrodite. Her and Ares have been caught by Hephaestus. So if you don't know anything about Greek mythology, Aphrodite and Hephaestus are married, but Aphrodite and Ares have this really torrent love affair. There's no love in the marriage between Hephaestus and Aphrodite, but Hephaestus continuously catches Aphrodite and Ares, like this, he makes it his thing. So he catches them in a hotel room and basically puts them on trial. And Aphrodite decides to tell a story of these 4 people with the help of other gods as well to kind of drop by and tell the story. And it is so heartbreaking because it goes over the First World War. It absolutely wrecked me, and I loved it so much, and it is so beautifully done. And the audiobook actually has like jazz elements put in because our main character Hazel and our other main character Aubrey and Hazel, they're not like love interests in this, but both of them are musicians. So Hazel is a classical musician, she plays piano, and then Aubrey is a jazz musician, so he plays piano but jazz. So they have a relationship with that, and in this book there is actually music that plays in the audiobook over like the chapter interludes and stuff. It is so beautiful, you guys. This book made me sob so hard. It is so good. It is so good. Alright, we're just gonna dive into this one because it kind of connects as well. So this is a historical fantasy. I think that's the way to say it, but that is The Diviners by Libba Bray, and this one I read in October. I'm so glad I finally got my hands into this book, and I actually started reading it because I tried to read it last October and I just couldn't get into it. I put it down. I've read the prologue for this book about 4 times now. I absolutely fell in love with it. It is so good. It is so good. The tension in this book, it had me on the edge of my seat. I can tell that this series is going to be a new favorite of mine. I have not gotten my hands on the next ones yet, but I really want to. The Diviners is a 1920s book about all these kids basically who have superpowers, and they don't know that they have superpowers. They don't know that anyone else has superpowers, and they're called diviners. And in this story, we have Evie, who gets basically kicked out of her town. Her parents ship her off to New York to spend some time with her uncle. And her uncle owns this like kind of curiosity type of museum, and they're at the same time the serial killer starts hitting New York. So they take it upon themselves to figure out who the serial killer is. Like her uncle starts working with the police because the murders are occult in nature. It's so good. Like Naughty John, our murderer, is like come back from the dead. He is so creepy. His chapters in here are wild. Again, the audiobook for this is so good because our narrator actually sings the parts that are supposed to be sung. There's like little ditties and like 1920s things that are like interlaced in this. It is so incredibly well done. The world building is, I think, my favorite part of this because it makes you feel like you're in the 1920s New York. It's so good. I love it so much. Alright, so the next one is kind of a cop-out. I have two to talk about, but I'm smooshing them into one category. And they are my favorite YAs of the year, my favorite YA fantasies. And I couldn't pick between these two. So I'm going to just talk about them both, and we're going to pretend that they are just one book. It's fine. But they are Raybearer by Jordan Afeko and The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. So both of these are very different. They are very different vibes, different stories completely, and they have different circumstances in which that I read them. So The Merciful Crow was a surprise 5-star for me. I read it earlier this year and I absolutely adored it. The magic system in this is so cool. It deals with bones and teeth and like the withdrawal of that kind of a magic. It has a caste system with birds and the crows, who our main character is a crow as well, and she's like a chieftain in training. And the crows in this society are the lowest of the low. They are hated upon by everyone else because they deal with like dead bodies, and because there's a plague going around, they have to rid the plague-ridden bodies from the town because they're immune to the plague, which is kind of interesting. It's so good. And then Raybearer, I knew I was gonna love it going into it, and I really, really did. This world is bubbly, bright, so well thought out and well done. The circumstances of this book that are described on the flap are only like the first 100 pages. This book is insane and so well done and so fast-paced, and I loved it so much. And I didn't really know what was going to happen in it, and I still really loved it. So these two are my favorite YAs of 2020, and we're going to just consider them one entry on this favorites of 2020 list because I couldn't pick between the two of them to talk about today. I loved them so much. So much. Actually, I have another book that I am still currently reading that I will talk about later in this video that I have a feeling would have been my favorite YA of 2020 if I had finished it on time. I'm still really salty about the fact that I didn't finish it. Salty at myself. There's no other reason except for me. Anyway, so now we're getting into my top 3. So these are in order. So actually, let's have a little game. Right now, comment down below what you think my top 3 are. See if you can guess. See if you can figure it out. I'll give you a little time. What are my top 3? Think about all of the books that I've talked about on my channel. Give them a think, and you'll get it. I like 100% you guys are gonna get it because I talk about them all the time, but okay, you ready? Are you guys ready? Okay, number 3 is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. This is a Mozart and Nannerl, like, historical fantasy-ish retelling sort of thing. This book spoke directly to my soul. I love it so much. So Nannerl is the real-life sister of Mozart who is criminally underknown because back in the day when they were alive, women were not allowed to compose music or play music in front of crowds unless they were children, because that was like on the same level as prostitution. It was not allowed, and it was also not really allowed to write music either. So in this, Marie Lu takes the story of Nannerl and Mozart and basically, as children, as they grow up, tells their story and also interlaces this like fantastical place that the two kids actually did make up. There is historical evidence of it. It's called The Kingdom of Back. and interlaces that with the story. And it is so good. I read this book while listening to Mozart's music, and I just love it so, so much. I love it so much. I think out of all of my favorite books, this is the one that I want you guys to read so much, but also not at all. Because what if you don't like this? Because music to me is everything. I have grown up playing piano since I was 4. I know Mozart's music. I play Mozart's music with my own hands. Like, music is everything to me. I am a piano teacher now, so this might have hit me that kind of way just because of that. And I don't know if other people are going to find it boring or that. So this is like my favorite book that I would love to recommend to all of you to read, but also not at all, because I don't want you to hate it. Number 2 on this list is, of course, The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I love this book so much. It is everything, really. This is now a new favorite book of all time for me. I love this book so much. It is a shot of pure serotonin. It is middle grade for adults. It follows Linus Baker, who is a government worker who works with orphanages that house magical children. And in this book, he goes and stays at a magical orphanage. He has to stay there for a month to do like casework on them, and he ends up falling in love with the place, with the kids, with the everything, and just like changing his perspective on the world and life. And so good. This book is perfect. It is perfect. I love this book so much, and everybody needs to read this one. This one, everybody needs to read, because there's literally no way you can hate this book unless you hate happiness. There's no way. There's no way. Oh, I love it. Oh, okay. Alright, drum roll please. My favorite book of 2020 and my favorite book of all time now is The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I brought up my copy that I actually read. This was a gift from my lovely, lovely friend Sarah from last Christmas, actually. She gifted it to me last Christmas. I absolutely adore this book so much, and when I read it, I annotated it. I took my time. It's just incredible, and it's so good. This book forever will be one of my favorite books of all time, or my favorite book of all time. It is so good. And this is another one that I don't think everyone will like though, because it is very flowery, it is very slow, it is like intertwined with other stories that it's like a puzzle pieces that kind of float in place for a very long time before they come together. And even then, they don't really all click together, but it's just so beautiful. This book is so good. I need to reread this. I might even reread this like first book in the year, because I just love it so, so much. Oh, this book is my favorite thing in the world. I love it. So it's basically about Zachary Ezra Rollins, who is this boy who one day in his university library before term starts, he finds this book called Sweet Sorrow, and he starts reading it, and he finds a story about himself in there as a kid. And he gets very confused, and then it basically sets him off on this journey to find the Starless Sea. And by the end of it, you are so immersed in this fantastical world, and you don't know how you got there. Because at the beginning, it's just Zachary on like campus. It's very mundane, it's very contemporary, but by the end, he's sailing the sea, and it feels like you've been dropped into the sea of honey, and I love it so much. I love it so much. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite book of 2020. Definitely my favorite book of like all time right now. I love it so much. Okay, friends, so that was my top 10 of 2020. Now let's dive into my almost favorites. So I have a few. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This book, I didn't give it a full 5-star. I think I gave it 4.5 star, but I loved it so much. It is so poignant and so well done. It is basically a satirical look and analysis on performative allyship, and it is about Amira, who is a black babysitter to a white child, and how this white child's family, this white child's mother, namely, is basically do the best for Amira in her eyes, like what she thinks is the best for Amira. And yeah, it all hangs around the event of when Amira took Briar, who's the little girl, to a supermarket. She was basically questioned by police and videotaped and whatever because she was accused of stealing Briar. And so it's everything after that. It's the people that she meets and just the circumstances. And it is so good and so enthralling. Like, you just want to keep reading it. This is another one that I need to get my hands on very soon because I listened to it and the audiobook is fantastic as well. So good. Another honorary mention, another almost favorite of mine is Dracul, which I left downstairs. This is the official prequel to Dracula by Bram Stoker. It is basically the story of Bram Stoker, his biography basically fictionalized. It is so good. It is so good. And I don't know whether it is because I read Dracula and I really, really love Dracula. It's one of my favorite classics. And then read this. I loved what the authors of Dracul did with the story and like called back to elements of Dracula. Is so good. Another almost favorite of mine is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This one I gave 4.5 stars. But I think if I had started it when I was in the mood for it and really just gave it the time and read it all the way through, it would have been a 5-star for me. Because when I first picked it up, the first 150 pages really dragged for me, and then I put it down. But when I picked it up again, it was incredible and I absolutely loved it. And I can see that this trilogy can easily be a favorite trilogy of mine. I just haven't read the other two yet, which is hopefully something I will be doing in 2021. Another almost favorite of mine is The Lost Queen by Signe Pike. This is a fictionalized retelling, I guess, of the legend of Merlin. So it is Arthurian myth, and it is about the Lost Queen. The Lost Queen, I believe, of 14th century Scotland. I think it's 14th century. But it's about Lengoreth, who is the claimed sister of Lailaken, the man who inspired or is the myth of Merlin. It's so good. This is more historical than fantasy. There are a little bit of elements of magic in this, but it is mostly historical fantasy, and it is so good. If you like Outlander, or if you sort of like Outlander, you will like this one a lot more. I super enjoyed this. It is so fantastic. All right, so earlier in this video, I did talk about my favorite middle grade of the year. This was a very, very, very close runner-up, and for a long time, until I read Green Glass House, this one was my favorite, and that is Sal and Gabby Break the Universe by Carlos Hernandez. This is part of the Rick Riordan Presents imprint from Disney Hyperion. It is about Sal, who is a lovely little diabetic kid who can rip holes in the universe, and all the antics that come from that. It is so good, you guys. The hilarity, the humor in this, incredible. This is the funniest middle grade I have ever read. Takes the cake easily. It is so, so good. And the last book that I'm going to talk about that I did read this year, that is an almost favorite, is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I adore this trilogy. I am currently halfway through The Hero of Ages, and I plan to finish it before the end of this year. This is fabulous. It is fabulous work. When I first read Mistborn, I don't think I realized how much I loved it until I got to this third book. I read Mistborn and then The Well of Ascension, and then there was enough of a break before I picked up The Hero of Ages that when I went back into the world in Hero of Ages, I realized how much I loved this trilogy, which is why it's on this list. This magic system in here is incredible. The first book specifically is kind of a blown up heist novel. So we have a group of people who all come together who all have different abilities, and not only like magical variety, but like in-person variety as to what they can do with their personalities and stuff. And then we have Vin, our main character, who is a Mistborn, and she can do all of the things with all of the metal. It's just incredible. It's just incredible, and I love it so much. Brandon Sanderson is a genius. All right, the last two books that I'm going to talk about today, and then I will let you guys go. I have two here. I am currently in the middle of both of them, and I believe that this first one I'm going to talk about would be an almost favorite, and the second one is probably going to be a favorite of mine for this year, but I just can't seem to read it fast enough. And the first one is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. It is a fantasy book that is set in a world that is like a pre-Columbian America. So we have I really don't even know how to describe this. It is a countdown to a solstice type of event throughout this book. So every chapter has like a timeline. So for example, chapter 16 it has at the beginning the crescent sea, year 325 of the sun, 19 days before convergence. So we have 20 days, 19 days, 10 years, 6 years. Like there's like we kind of timeline hop a little bit, which is so fun to me. I follow many different people and it is so interesting to me so far. I'm really, really loving it. So make sure to, I don't know, tune into my channel to find out how I really feel about that when I do actually finish it. And then the book that I believe would have been my favorite YA of 2020 is Legend Born by Tracy Deonn. I just am not done it yet. I'm 200 pages in and I can already tell that I absolutely love this. So this is another Arthurian retelling. Arthurian legend is just incredible, but it's mixed with urban fantasy and black girl magic. So we have Bree Matthews, our main character, who has just lost her mother at the beginning of the story, but she gets into this very prestigious high school program at a college, at UNC College. Here, the very first night that she's at this college, she witnesses a magical attack. And so she gets wrapped up in this world where she desperately wants to find out what's going on. It is so good so far, you guys. I'm obsessed. Anyways, friends, thank you so much for watching. I know it was a little bit of a longer video because I didn't just talk about my top 10 favorites. I talked about almost favorites and then 2 that I'm still currently reading that I believe would have been on this list. But I just couldn't not talk about all those books because they are all absolutely incredible. Next week, Wednesday, I am going to be going over all the books that I read. It's going to be my stats and goals video. So I will be talking even more in depth about like statistic-wise of my reading year of 2020, which I'm very excited about because as of right now, filming this video, I have read 142 books, I think. So I have a lot to talk about and a lot to go through. So definitely subscribe if you haven't to not miss out on that video. And make sure to like this video if you haven't yet, because if you like this video, like it. Just hit that thumbs up button. And I will catch you in another video soon, friends. Stay kind and keep on reading.